What's up? What's up? What's up, folks? It is another episode of Soul Talk, and today, we got ourselves a nice special guest. I'm super excited. I have so many words to describe this person, but I'll just do a few. Just the consummate professional. That's number one. Just a stand-up guy. Number two, somebody who's been in all different facets of the entertainment industry, right? And we'll get into that a little bit. I'm happy that what I'll say about some people who have the ability to say no. He said yes to me, whether it was today to this podcast or working together. And I feel like he's somebody who's going to give us so much value in our conversation. So, welcome to Soul Talk, Darrin Henson. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. It's good to be on with you, Kenny.
Thank you, thank you. So we'll go ahead and just dive directly into it. So recently, you released, I guess we can call it a documentary. I think that's a good way to classify it. Um, Dance Grooves, and I feel like I learned so much. It was just like, from the time I started, I was like, "Yo, KRS-One," and then it just kept hitting me with stuff, and I'm like, "What? I didn't know all of this about this person." And so, after watching and we'll talk about, some moments throughout the documentary. Make sure you guys go check it out. It's on Tubi right now, but
Well, no, it's
after
not.
going
So hold on. So
okay.
so so this is the thing. So it was on Tubi. It finally released on Tubi, and then a week later they took it down because the presentation was incorrect. And so now it seems like it's taken forever to get it put back up. So it was up for about 5 days, and you got to see it while it was up, but the
Okay.
actual thumbnail was incorrect. So when we told them that it was incorrect, they took the whole project down instead of correcting the thumbnail. So now we're waiting for it to come back up. So I think it's going to be back up the second week of November. And, I'll let everyone know when it's back up, but expect it back up by the second week of November. It's called The Untold Darrin Henson Story, Darrin's Dance Grooves.
Yeah, and so I guess I was privileged to be able to see it. So make sure you guys go check it out when it is back up. But after just watching that journey, right? One of the first questions that I had was like, what was one of your biggest takeaways just during that chapter of where you were predominantly a choreographer?
Honestly, it was living with passion, to get to work with Michael Jackson, Prince, the Spice Girls. Let's just start off with Michael Jackson and Prince. I was in awe, 99.9% of the time working with them. I hung out with Prince in New York, him and Stevie Wonder. Like he would call me and be like, come hang out. And I would be like a fly on the wall, even though he asked me to come hang out. It was still Prince. It was still Stevie Wonder at the time. Or when I would go to Paisley Park, you know, or when I would go to Prince's house, I would learn so much from him, and things that he would tell me I still use today. One of the major things that I remember, I was choreographing a video for him called Face Down. I remember him asking to see it. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was in the hotel. His assistant called and said he wants to see it. So showed it to him. He said, change it.
Mm.
I was like, change it? He's like, yeah, change it. So it took me like 2 or 3 hours to change it. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning now. The dancers were there. He came back to look at it. And I said, do you like this better? He goes, it's not better. It's just different.
Mm.
So I learned a few things. Always be ready to be even more creative. And it doesn't make something better just because it's different, right? In society, we always want to point the finger. That's better. That's better. Is it really though? Or is it just different?
Mm.
Is power better than BMF? Or is it just different? Is BMF better than family business? Or is it just different? Is family business better than power? Or is it just different? So it's just different, Is Stomp the Yard better than,
You got served?
Save the Last Dance or You Got Served? I don't know. It depends on what genre you're talking to. It was right at the right time for the right people, for the right reasons. So things aren't just things, some things can be better, but a lot of times things are just different, you know? So
Mhm.
I
I
learned that.
agree.
I learned not to kind of force things and just allow creativity to flow. And when you allow it to flow, you're really living anyway.
One of the things that I love about you is just kind of the frequency of just operating out of abundance, right? I feel like I get that vibe from you 24/7, being a positive person. And so when I'm talking to like new actors, right? Or just people who are trying to book, oftentimes I tell them like the behind the scenes of that is to your point. You can kill an audition, right? And still not get that role. And it doesn't mean that you didn't do a great job. It doesn't mean that that other person was better. It literally could just be different. And I tried to open a window. It could be, well, maybe this person looks, more appealing. Not saying that person isn't attractive, but more appealing next to this character. Maybe there's a height difference that doesn't make sense when I'm going into framing. It's just all these little things, right, as
So
to how
true.
you book a role or don't book a role, and I think to piggyback off of what you said, if you focus on what you can control, right, which is your energy, your effort, then eventually you're gonna get to where you're going, and I feel like when I watched the documentary, that was like a continuous theme, right, of, like, you focusing on what you were putting forth and then people noticing. I won't ruin the whole thing, but there was a moment in the documentary where Michael acknowledged you, right? And the effort that you were being put forth.
Yep.
You was just doing what you do.
Yep.
And and then
And he
and the
said, "You
king
are
said,
incredible." And
"Yep,
it was like, I mean, my love for dance, my love for street dance, popping, and just, to get to work with him. And then when he said that, I thought, this is Michael Jackson. Like, this is Michael Jackson saying that to me. And I remember not being able to speak for about an hour. But after that, no one could say anything to me because it was
mm,
Michael Jackson that told me I was incredible. And then after that, I just kind of took over the whole market. That's when you got to see Britney Spears, NSYNC, J Lo, Spice Girl. It was just like nobody could say anything to me. If I had gotten that far to work with Michael Jackson, I must have been doing something right. And to your point, I've auditioned for many things and didn't get it. I mean, I auditioned for Save the Last Dance, and Thomas Carter and David Madden wanted me. But the studio at that time, Paramount, was like, we don't know this guy to be an actor. And so they didn't go with me. But I booked Soul Food that same week, right? So that was meant for me. But it doesn't mean that if you didn't get a part, you weren't good. Now, sometimes people think they're better than they are as well, right? That's another thing. It's like, how good are you? How truthful are you? So you got to check your ego at the door and get to work. So it could be a plethora, it could be a number of things. You might be too tall, too short, too light, too dark, too big, too small. It could be anything. Who knows what it is? That's not your job. Your job is to tell the truth about the character and do the best that you can do. And the way I look at it, during any auditions, and there's sometimes that I still auditions. A lot of times I don't have to, but sometimes you do. And I remove the ego and I say, look, it's just that this is another time that I get to play a character and morph. So I don't feel a way about the auditioning process. I just go, it's another opportunity for me to have fun and really drop into the character. I think you can see in terms of my personality now, I'm a lot different from the characters that I play, right? And so it's fun dropping into different characters and being molded by their mindset.
I think you always take advantage of the opportunity that's presented in front of you, and you do a great job at that. Two more questions about Darren's dance move. And so I know it might be hard to pinpoint, but I want to ask, is there a favorite collaboration or performance like in that space? And what was you talked about Michael Jackson? Maybe there's something else. I mean, it's hard to top Michael. So
I
what
mean,
else would you say?
Michael Jackson and Prince, right? Like
Yeah.
two of the best. When it came to performance, it was clearly Michael Jackson. When it came to just the full spectrum of it, because Prince could dance his butt off too, right? So, but listening to him play and sing, it was just, to me, it was the best experiences that I had So I would say working with Michael Jackson, performing Dangerous, working with Prince, choreographing for Prince, and then winning the MTV Music Award for Bye Bye Bye. It's like you can just wrap all of that up in a big bow, and it's the gift that just keeps on giving, right? So you
Love
can't
that.
really compare them. It's like the dream comes true of being known as one of the best choreographers in the world. And then you work with Michael Jackson and Prince and Michael Jackson. It's kind of just like,
Yep, what do we do after that?
what do you do? You know?
So, when it came full circle, right? So you continue to have this amazing dancing, choreography. We'll get into acting here in a second. But there came a time where it was like, okay, so I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do Darren's dance crews because you were giving, I guess you can call them workshops, right? Around the
Yep.
nation. And they were very
Yeah.
successful. You're like, this is something that we should bring to DVD. Well,
Yep.
you pitched it and people weren't feeling it, right? Or it just wasn't all the way there. So at a point, you had to bet on yourself. And
Yep.
so why don't you talk about what that felt like there, and maybe if there's other moments where you feel like you've had to bet on yourself and it's paid off?
Yeah. I mean, to be very honest, I've always been underestimated. And I'm cool with it because it makes me show up and show out. I'm a fighter for real. And when somebody says I can't do something or I wouldn't be able to do it, I show them that I can, and I believe in Darrin. So if you don't, that's your issue. When I pitched Darrin's dance grooves, everyone said no. Sony said no. Jive said no. I mean, I could for a whole year, people were like, no, 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 no. Other people was like, nobody ever did that. And I was like, exactly. I remember when Billy Blanks was out, and I was like, if they could do that with boxing and karate, why can't you do it with dance? And nobody had done it. And so I decided to be the person to do it. And when I got told no for about a year, I went and shot it myself. And then after I shot it, I went to an attorney that I was working with that worked with Britney Spears. And he saw it and he goes, this is a great idea. And so he said, give me a couple of weeks. And then he came back and said, I want to introduce you to somebody. So it was a company that he introduced me to that was involved in the music industry, so to speak. And they even said no because they had never done anything like that in that space. And so, you know, I said, listen, don't say no so fast because I hadn't heard no for a year. And hearing no meant I'm closer to my yes. And so I had a Darren's Dance Grooves workshop where it was like 1,000 people, young girls and young boys at the Darren's Dance Grooves workshop. And I said, give me a week. And so I used to videotape all of the workshops, and I came back with the video camera. I had incorporated in 1997, way before the DVD ever came out. And
Mhm.
so I went to them and I said, check this out. And they said, wow, how many people are there? Actually, it was about 1,100. So they were like, wow, how much does it cost? And I said it was $150 a head. And they said, well, you know, who owns this? And I said, it's called Darren's Dance Grooves Dance Convention. They said, yeah, but who owns it? And I said, it's called Darren's Dance Grooves. And they were like, you own this? And I said, yeah. So they started calculating and they figured it out. Once I told
Mhm.
them how much I did it around the country and how many I did a year, they said, absolutely, because it was already an audience that was built in with the possibility of this being a hit DVD. And it was. By Christmas that following year, it was the largest selling Christmas item in America.
I mean, you wanna talk about betting on yourself, and then we'll get into this recurring theme of ownership, right? I talk about it all the time on this podcast, when I'm talking to fellow filmmakers, producers, right? One of the best gems that you could have in your back pocket, right, is ownership, is
Yes.
owning what it is that you make, because then you're in the position to say no. And
Absolutely.
sometimes saying no is what leads, like, to your yes. And so that's a
Absolutely.
perfect transition. You just talked about how you got turned down for Say the Last Dance. Same week, you got offered soul food, right? And speak on what your transition of into acting, right? Mainly focused on acting, what that looked like for you, as well as the success of the mega show, Soul Food. My aunties, my mom, they all talk about them like, oh, that's Darren from Soul Food. I'm like, yes, that's Darren from Soul Food and other things too.
I mean, really, to be very honest, and that's a great question. To be very honest, it was I did everything I wanted to do in dance. You know, from dancing to choreography, and then winning the MTV Music Award. It was just like, what do you do now? It was like I did everything I wanted to do. All of my dreams came true, and I was like, I, I guess I'm gonna start acting. So I went to the audition. Actually, I auditioned before I went to work with the Spice Girls. I'll never forget it. I went to work with the Spice Girls in England for about a month, and it was choreographing their tour, the Winter Garden tour. And when I came back home, I auditioned and I didn't hear anything. And then I went back to England to finish working with the Spice Girls. And then about a month later, I got a call and they said they want to see you for Soul Food. And I said, what do you mean they want to see me? They didn't cast it yet? And they were like, yeah, no. I went back in. And so I met with Felicia Henderson and she goes, listen, you're my Lem. So go in there and win this part. So they took me to Network and everybody had audition at that time. Lorenz Tate, Tyrese, like everybody wanted that role. Let's tell the truth. And you know, I won the role as Lem Van Adams. But the great thing was the original week that I went in for Save the Last Dance, while I was there, the agents were like, look, you're in LA. Would you like to audition for this TV show? And of course, I went for it. So that's me saying, don't be so stuck in your ways that you don't look for another window that may be open for you. And
Okay.
so just lead with faith, lead with belief, lead with structure, lead with passion, and just follow your dreams. Follow them. They're there for you. They're guiding you. And believe in yourself long and strong enough and don't give up. Because if you give up on Monday, there is no Tuesday.
Mm. And now that was a word. So we talk about soul food, that transition for acting, right? And so for me, I'm like, all right, so obviously that hits that boom, that's a catapult into the acting career, right? But then we at this point we're at decades into the mix with acting. And so I know about actors or actresses that such and such on that show and then we never see them again. Or such and such in that film and we never see them again. So the question that I have for you is how do you stay booked?
I stay studying. You know, people, there's some people who once they get a job, they think that's it. It's not it. I think that too many people think about being famous and not good at what they do. And I love acting like I loved dance. And so it's important for me to study acting and what it means to be an actor and study life, study emotion, study thought, study physicality, because it's all expressions that need to be conveyed. You know, what is the truth of a person's life and how do I tell that truth? You know, am I playing that person with empathy of understanding who that person is and what they're going through? Do I know how to convey their truth on camera? Because the camera captures the truth. I tell people all the time, if you're lying, the camera's going to see it. So tell the truth. The camera sees everything. And so I tell people, you know, when you see a good movie, it's because people are doing the work. When you see a bad film, it's because people are focused on being popular. And so you might be popular for the wrong reasons. You know, there are a lot of people who want to be famous and they might be famous, you know, because they're on somebody's screen, but it doesn't make them an actor. I think that's a word that has been disrespected for quite some time now. And when you talk to real thespians, real actors, when you talk to Don Cheadle, when you talk to Denzel, when you talk to, Lawrence Fishburne, it's a different conversation. When you speak to Jeffrey Wright, it's a different conversation. And so those are the conversations that I like to have. And
Mhm.
those are the griots that I listen to and I learn from, not just from watching their movies, but really, what are they teaching? What do they have to say? Denzel might pop up and teach an acting class. If you're lucky enough to, be in his, I don't know if he still does it. I know he used to, but if you
Mhm.
have the opportunity to study with a Susan Batson, run to class.
I heard a few themes, right? Studying, of course, number 1. 2, I heard mentorship, right? And then staying true to the character. I can speak from my experience, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the episode of just working with you, right? So now, like, mind you, I'm still early in my directing and producing career. But what I can say is I've worked with some legends like you or William Allen Young, right? And there is a difference when I'm working with somebody like you and somebody like him and a few other actors and actresses that I've worked with. I would call you actors. In music, we have the saying of like rappers rapper. Like Eminem is a rapper's rapper, meaning that rappers listen to Eminem and they're at all at what it is that Eminem is doing. Kendrick is considered a rapper's rapper. He just also has commercial appeal. So when you're talking about thespians for the layman folks, an actor's actor is to me is somebody who has a technique. They're not thriving off of just zero casting or their personality. I can tell that they're becoming a character. And then because they have a technique, if you throw some type of tweak or change or whatever, they can use that technique and pivot right then and there of what needs to be done. And then Darren does a great job too of listening to understand, not just to respond, but adding in, right? They're bringing something to the table. He'll have an idea or a take, right? That I'm like, I didn't even think about that as a director. So I definitely just echo everything that you were saying. And so I guess I want to add, right? For somebody who's green as an actor, what advice would you give them as they're on their journey?
Don't be so quick to want to be in a film, meaning
Mm,
do the work first, take class, get good at what you do. You know, you have the opportunity to move people emotionally while you're in class. And when you can do that long and strong enough, now it's time to step out into the world, right? Like I said, it's not just about being famous. You become famous when you're good at what you do. Fame will look for you. Whatever you're looking for is also looking for you. So I say, look to be good and then to be great. It's like Michael
mm.
Jackson says, study the greats and become greater. And so it's right there for us. It's a moment, it's an opportunity to live in the moment and to study and to become. And the more you do that, the better you get. People will find you. There's an actress named Nicole Bahari that I've worked with
Yes.
who's amazing. And she's not like this, popular person on social media and all that. But when you see her on screen, and the right people know who she is. Do you get what I'm
Mhm.
saying? The right people know who she is. And so you see her pop up in this show, that show, and you're like, wow, yeah, because the right people know her work because she does the work. And
Mhm.
so again, you have, a lot of these people, they think makeup and all that doesn't make an actor. It's not about how long your eyelashes are or how much blush you wear. It's about, and sometimes, and I have to speak to this, Kennedy, because sometimes it's a disservice. Like sometimes when I see someone that has been distraught and the scene is supposed to be them broken down, why do you have a face full of makeup and you're glossed out? You should be broken and broken looking. Like my cousin Taraji does that so well. When you see her in the movie, she just drops into the
Yeah.
character. It's not about how pretty she is. If the character's broken, you're broken. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You shouldn't be in a
I
face
argue
full of
this
makeup, you know.
argue this all the time, right? And so as we know, there's like, well, okay, a good example I feel like that piggies off of what you're saying is there was an interview a while back with Denzel Washington, right? And the interviewer was like, "You're one of the biggest movie stars, right, of all time." And Denzel's response, and I'm giving a derivative of it, but Denzel's response was like,
What's a movie star?
what's a movie star, right? And then he was like, movies are for directors, right? Actors. He was like, I'm a theater actor. Like actors of the actors medium is theater. And I always say people who are theater actors, whoo, if you could be on the stage and you got one take, it's easy to transfer that to the big screen. And I think to speak on your point, the problem is two things. Well, one, there's this polished look that everybody, as far as platforms, right? Or even as an audience that you're conditioned to be looking for, right? And then two, right, at the same time is as an actor or somebody of a name, you also have to have the willingness to be raw and vulnerable. I feel like Viola Davis does a great job at that. She's a beautiful woman, right? She'll be beautiful. And then we'll see her in a scene where it just
Not
rips.
running, eyes crying, because she's playing the truth of the character and what the character is
Mhm.
going through emotionally. That's why we know her. That's why she's famous. That's why she's wealthy, because she focused on the work. Whereas somebody else might be a face full of makeup and, a scene that calls for deep emotion. You got a pound of makeup on your face and you look beautiful, but there's no emotion behind what's going on. And,
Mhm.
I'm just cut from a different cloth.
Well, I think to your point, I think today's society right now, well, how it used to be is you got famous for what you did, right? Now you getting famous for who you are, and that could be clicks and followers. And that's not to say that there's not some influencers who have done the work, and I encourage them, right, to go to acting classes and do all that, right, and become an actor, right, on stage. But at the same time, I think that there is a gap, right, between actors who do the work like yourself and others, right, who transfer on the screen. I don't think it's going away though. Me and a few of my friends had this argument about AI, right, and how it could affect the performances. I think as an audience, we still want to see Denzel because we want to see that walk. Or we want to see whatever he's going to do. We know the difference between AI Denzel and Denzel, and we're not settling for that. So I will continue to double down on doing the work, to your
Yeah. I
point.
think that they're gonna, I think AI will swoop its way in, but it may start with like, live animation. I don't think that we're replacing any great actors anytime soon. It's a part of the conversation. It's like, it's pitching the idea and the concept like a precog, right? Like, so you talk about it long enough, it may come true. But yeah, no. Yeah, it's technology here, is AI here. Yeah, we see it all over the internet. 99% of the stuff that's on the internet is AI now, right? And so that's what it's being used for. But actually going to a movie and looking at and for what? For what?
'Cause we could do it at home, and I think maybe it'll have its own space, but I don't think that it replaces the space. I think even more so now, if we look at what's getting funded or isn't getting funded, right? What makes it to the big screen or not, it's these films that are these real, like, well-acted, put together, capture an audience films, and I don't think that changes, and so let's segue to another section though, right? So we have these ups in any type of entertainment career, right? And then there's obstacles that you have to overcome. It's no surprise that sometimes there's negative aspects of entertainment. And so I want to give you a chance to give advice, right, to maybe folks that are just getting into acting or entertainment. How do you avoid the dark side of entertainment? I can even queue up, I think it was a while back on Instagram you spoke, and we don't have to say his name, but about a young actor. You were giving a young actor advice, right, on what it was that they should avoid in the entertainment industry. You spoke on your experiences and choices that you made. I'll give you the floor from there.
Yeah, when it comes to that, it depends on the individual. Everybody's different and certain people are willing to sell them their bodies or their souls to become famous. I just happen not to be one of those people. That's not who I am. I understand my value. I understand my voice. I understand my power. I understand that in terms of my connection over the last, 3 decades, I've got a name that is international. So, you know, people who want to get rich quick, people who want to be famous, they'll do anything, and it's costly. There's no such thing as something for nothing. You've got to pay. Like they say, there's a price to pay for being focused, and there's a price to pay for being unfocused. It's like when you go to the gym. You can be disciplined and go through that pain, or you could be undisciplined and deal with that pain because you are undisciplined. So you've got to pick your pain and your pain level. And what I say to people is, listen, new level, new devil. You have to
Mm.
be aware. Don't be in a rush. Write down what you want, why you want it, the way you want it, and be willing to work for it. That way, in the end, you don't have somebody saying, "You owe me." When you work for something and you get it, it feels so much better. It tastes so much better. It just feels so good knowing I work for this, Like when
Mhm.
I and at the same time be present and be available, because we don't get places by ourselves, right? Somebody has to see value in us, but we don't have to play the Hollywood game. We don't have to play the casting couch game. We don't have to play the coercion game. We don't have to play the disrespect game. We don't have to do that. We've heard time and time again, stories of people who have, and it cost them their dignity, and some dirt don't wash off.
No, it doesn't. I can only speak on my personal experience really starting in the music space. I think early on, right, it was known that Scribe was not the one who was going to be doing the unnecessary producer meeting, so to speak, right? And I felt really good when it was time for me to transition fully into film, right? Based off of what I achieved independently and doing shows. I felt okay walking away knowing that if that's what I had to do, not saying you have to do that to be successful, but if that's what I had to do, if that's what I left on the table, that's fine. Because there's so many other ways to be successful. There's so many other ways to make money. And for me, that was never on the table. And so I just want to encourage people as they're going through the process, whether it's entertainment or something else, you can get to where you're supposed to go without having to compromise like your morals and your standards. And unfortunately, now with society, it seems like they're showing us the opposite, right? Whether it's on our algorithms, they're showing females in particular that you have to bend it over and bust it open in order to be successful. And you don't have to do that. There are other paths to do it. You could do the work, right? You could own your own, right? Create your own platform, create your own audience. There's just so many options. And so I love when I'm talking to people like yourself, right? To be able to speak on that so that they can see that there's actual examples out there, right? Other than what's being shown on social media. So
100%. There's a price to pay when you want to do it quickly. You know, it's an old story. The turtle and the hare. It's an old story, and so those people that want it now, 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 there's a price to pay. It's like, you want a fast track, fine. Here you go. This is what it's going to cost you. And so again, some dirt don't wash off. I've seen men and women. It's cost them a lot. It's cost them a lot of peace. Some people aren't in this industry anymore. Some people aren't doing well mentally. It cost. And sometimes the price is too high to pay, you
mhm.
know?
I totally agree. So let's segue over. I gotta sneak in some fans questions because I'm a fan of what you do. And so it would be literally generationally a crime if I didn't talk about Stump the Yard. So what I love about Stump the Yard, now that it just going through Darren's dance grooves and that story, it really was the perfect combination of both of the things that you do great, right? in acting and dancing, and, like, I could still remember the dance battle where y'all was breaking it down in the club
Yeah.
and all that. Me and my fiancé be just still doing the steps. It's such an iconic performance, right? And so, I don't know if you have a favorite story or something that happened on Stomp the Yard that you wanna share with people.
Well, number one, one of the major reasons why I was really excited about doing that was because I didn't do Save the Last Dance. And so I wanted to be like John Travolta. I wanted to be like Michael Jackson. I wanted to be like Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, people who had, even Prince. Prince created his own films, acting and dancing, fusing the two together. And so Stomp the Yard was the catalyst to do that for me. And that's really what it was about for me. I wanted to be able to act and dance in the same film. And so, Gregory Hines, right? So Barishnikov in their movie White Knights, right? Yeah. So I felt like I joined their fraternity when I did Stomp the Yard. And for me, to be honest, because stepping is like drumming and I don't drum, it was one of the hardest things that I had ever done, keeping two different rhythms at the same time. It wasn't
Interesting.
easy. Dancing is different. Dancing is rhythmic, right? Like it could be staccato, but stepping is keeping two different patterns, two different rhythms. It was not easy for me.
Okay, which is that's so crazy though, like, because 'cause I'm trying to well, I guess because if you're and then the other portion of it is you're also a choreographer too, right? So, like, there's a certain way that dance is probably taught, like, it's been
Yeah,
engraved,
yeah.
and they're very much now I think about it, they're very much in between the beat. They're
Yeah,
very
and
much
I
like
and I only choreographed my solo stuff, like the wolf trap stuff, the
okay.
battles. I choreographed that, but may he rest in peace, Dave Scott and Chuck Maldonado. Dave Scott did the hip hop dancing part of it, and Chuck Maldonado did all of the stepping. And so, it was hard.
My goodness, you made it look so easy.
It was hard.
How much prep did you guys have for it though? Was it
We
like
we filmed
months?
Stomp the Yard in Atlanta over a 3-month period on the Morris Brown campus.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
Shout
that's
out to
like
all the HBCUs.
for sure. Will Packer talked about kind of the distribution process with that, right? And what that was like for him. So it's just interesting to hear your side, right? On like kind of the production aspect and then that such an iconic film. When people see you on the street, what's either, a line that they say, whether it's from something art or another project or just something, what role do they bring up
When
to you the
it's
most?
Stomp the Yard, they go bootlicking. I'm like, I'm not the bootlicker. That's what I said to him. Or people call me Lem. Now they're calling me Orlando.
Mhm.
So I mean, depending on what they're watching and how much they love it, they normally shout out, whatever my character is.
So many iconic roles, and it's a great segue. Let's talk about Family Business. You guys are in a new season of Family Business. If you guys haven't seen it, it is such a huge show. There is so many characters and storylines and just a little this and that and this and that. There's something definitely for everybody when you watch that show. So I don't know if you want to go through the process. Like, how did you land on the show, right? Like, what do you like about your character's journey so far? And what do people have to look forward to this season?
Well, I gotta say this, and I gotta shout her out. My cousin KJ Rose, Kiana, she introduced me to the executive producer Andy Brown, and so I did a movie called Black Coffee with them, written and directed by Mark Harris. So it was through KJ Rose that I even started working with Tridestin, and then I remember writing a vision board and I put Armand Asante on the vision board because I love a movie he did with Antonio Banderas called Mambo Kings. And about 2 weeks later, I get a call from Andy, and she's like, "Brother, I need to talk to you." And I'm like, "What's going on, Andy?" She was like, "I got something I think you're gonna like." So she started breaking it down, told me that Ernie would be my dad, and I was like, "Oh my God, yes." And then I said, "Who else is in it?" She said, "Antonio." I mean, she said, Armand Santi. I was like, "Come on, like, come on." That shows you how powerful vision boards are. And then they casted me as Orlando Duncan, and it was surreal. it was surreal. And now 6 seasons later, one of the biggest shows on television, one of the strongest families. And then I get to work with my loves, Ernie Hudson and Valerie Pettiford, Michael Jai White, Sean Ringo, Tammy Roman, Javicia Leslie, Arrington. It's a love affair. It's a family love affair when I get to do the family business.
So many heavy hitters, like to the point where I know when people come in that day, they be like, "So who gonna be number one on the call sheet today?" They over there trying to figure it out.
Look, I can tell you, it's Ernie Hudson, Valerie Pettiford, Darrin Henson. That's the
Okay.
top three.
Oh, but I think that is amazing to really just get to work with like OGs, right?
No
And
doubt.
and when you do that, there's just a certain element that you get to play, right? And I'm sure that when you guys are on set, right, there's an elevation going on. You're elevating them, right? They're elevating you. I often think about scenarios like that, and it reminds me of just like my sports days, right? Where like the best players, the Kobe's, right? The Michael Jordans of the world, they elevate everybody else around them, right? So my scene partner today is gonna be Valerie. I gotta come with it, and I'm sure you
Everybody
always
comes,
come with it.
yes, everybody comes to work, everybody comes to play. And it's about being better, right? It's about getting better. I'm looking at the sixth season now and I'm like, wow. It's like the show literally keeps getting better. It's the sixth season is incredible.
Be sure to check it out. Check it out on BT Plus, right? Man, 6 seasons in today's time. Like, make sure we tap in today's time. Six
Every
seasons
every
is saying
Thursday.
a lot. Every Thursday, for sure. All right, so let's talk about the future. Well, me and Darren have a project together.
That's right.
It is right. It is a romantic thriller called Home Invasion. Darren's character, we won't give away too much, but it should be out later on this year. I'm really curious. I always look for feedback, right? So, what was your experience like working with me and the rest of the crew? And then I don't know if you have anything you haven't said to me yet, or like advice or whatever. Give it to me.
Well, to be honest, it was the very first time that we had worked together in our meeting experience, and I had an amazing experience working with you, which is why we're on now. I have a great respect for you and a great love for your work, how you work. You bout it. You get the work done, and you're focused. And one of the things that is very important, truth telling situation, and that's really what it is a set that is comparable to the end result. And you picked a team of people that work together very, very well. And that's what I really watch for on set. Because sometimes you can walk on a set and you don't know what to expect. But really, as the captain of the ship, they respected you. Everybody did their job. They stayed out of the way, meaning your team gave the actors their space. I know I got my space that I needed to play the character. And it was powerful. We were able to get the work in and get it done. And I'm actually excited to see the film. I saw the trailer and it's amazing. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. I had a ball working with you, and I feel like I learned so much. Even in this podcast, I learned so much. So for people, actors like yourself, right? Actors like yourself who could say no to anybody new or green, etc., right? So why do you choose to say yes? Why do you choose to stay open in the process?
I don't say yes to everything. I turn a
Yeah.
lot. I say yes to good work. I say yes to creative work. I say yes to possibility. I say yes to education. I say yes to information. I say yes to expansion. I say yes to a new moment that could build into a cacophony of things. And so we have to be aware where we're putting our energy and who we're sharing it with and why. Your why has to be, strong. Your why has to be everything. If your intention is in the right place for the right reasons with the right people at the right time, then guess what? You've helped expand the consciousness in the world. And that means the world to me.
Mm. Knowing your why is the driver for your whole life.
Yeah, it's
If you're
everything.
clear on your if you're clear on your why, you're gonna get to the right direction for sure. 2 more. What is a character that you haven't played or a type of character, right, that you would wanna play?
Wow, great question. I can tell you who I want to work with because I've played a
Okay.
lot of different characters. I played the boyfriend, I played the father, I played the husband, I played the marine, I played the detective, I played the thug, I played the doctor. Like I've it's me wanting to work with Delroy Lindo. It's me wanting
Ooh,
to work with
yes.
John Travolta. It's me wanting to work with Don Cheadle. It's me wanting to work with Denzel. It's me wanting to work again with Ernie Hudson in a different kind of setting. It's me wanting to work with one of, my heroes, Wesley Snipes. It's me wanting to work with Eddie Murphy. So whatever that brings, whatever those characters bring, I'm going to shape myself to become that anyway. And so it's really about the opportunity to work with that greatness.
Mhm. Mhm. I see that. We'll manifest that right now. We're gonna
Yes.
manifest that for 2025 and 2026. Darren and Denzel. Oh yeah, that sounds fire. I love that.
When I worked with Dennis Quaid in The Express, when I
Okay.
played Jim Brown in The Express, Dennis Quaid told me, he said, "You got that thing." And I said, "What do you mean?" He
Mm,
goes, "That thing, you got it." And I'll never forget that day. This is Dennis Quaid saying this, right? And so, you know, I remember that. And I feel that and I know that. And so I operate in that success. And success leaves clues. You just got to pay attention to where you're putting your magnifying glass and be a
mhm.
detective.
Mhm. Um, if you could leave people with something, right? So if you could finish the sentence or swag it how you want. Uh, if people don't remember anything from Darren Henson, right? I want them to remember.
Knowing that I love what I do and I do it with passion.
Mm, I feel like that, my friends, is the best way to wrap us up here today. I mean, we got so many gems on today's episode with Darren. Thank you so much. You
Thank
guys be
you.
sure to follow him on social media and
And my
check out all
website.
of. Yes, go ahead.
And my
Is it
website,
just darrenhenson.com?
www.thedarrenhenson.com. www.thedarrenhenson.com. Come visit me.
Come visit him, check out all of his work, and we'll continue to support him in the future. Thanks so much.